What's going up, YouTube? Welcome to another edition of Tips on the Beat with D.Royul, where I, D.Royul, will be making a beat, and I'm going to give you 5 insights into how I made it to hopefully give you some brand new, fresh inspiration into how you make music in your own life. Now I'm back after doing some things with the McDonald's Gospel Fest. It was a great time. It was my second year taking part. Last year I won. You can see the video in the top left-hand corner of when that happened. This year I didn't win, but that wasn't even my focus. I wanted to be able to take part, share the gifts I have, and encourage those who were in my category as well, so that we can all come out and do our best with whatever gifts God has given us. So today we're going to be talking about an idea I had with a very interesting source of inspiration. And we'll start off our video talking about that number one thing as well. Let everything be your inspiration. It could be birds outside. It could be a vacuum cleaner. It could be some food you ate. It could be just a little 3-note chord you heard on a commercial or something that has you start there and do something more with it. Take everything that you hear, and if it gives you an idea, put it down, record it, or make a note on your phone real quick so that you can come back to it and build something off of it. So as we begin to see what this looks like when we put it together, let's first take a look at where this inspiration came from. So today's beat inspiration actually comes from a clip from our old favorite shows growing up as a kid, Thomas the Tank Engine. It's a part of the story where Henry, this green train, he doesn't want to get out of the tunnel, and then this little interlude happens. So let's take a listen.
Eventually, even the Fat Controller gave up. "We shall take away your rails," he said, "and leave you here for always and always and always." They took up the old rails and built a wall in front of him so that Henry couldn't get out of the tunnel anymore.
So now what I've done is I've taken that segment and cropped out a bit of the music that was clean, that had none of the talking in it. That sounds about right. So let's put that in the Logic and do something with it. All right, everybody, tip number 2, using the sample as a solid foundation for the track. For this track, I'm not chopping up the sample a whole lot. It's one loop, and it's going to loop over and over again, and I'm building the other portions of the song on top of it. As you just saw, I just did the drum and the cymbal part, and so that's going to continue through the track. I mean, that might change up a bit, but the sample is going to stay the same so that there can be consistency through the whole track, and that the beats per minute or the tempo of the song won't change, because the tempo itself is based around the sample that I'm using. right, everybody. Tip number 3, combine and use different DAWs or digital audio workstations to create the sound that you want. The 2 sounds that I just used for that main synth line and those chords I was playing, they are not from Logic Pro. They are from Reason. Now, there's a way to actually connect Reason through Logic, but for this track I didn't do all that because I just didn't feel like it. So what I did was I bounced out the track or the instruments that I just played and put them into Logic in the mixing screen. Now, bouncing out, that's, if you don't know how to do it in whatever system you're using, look it up online. But by doing that, I knew what tempo I was using, so I was playing along just a generic beat that I may have had, or I put the beat that I'm playing for the song into it. Didn't matter what sounds I used, but just so I can get the tempo right, and then I played the instruments along with it. I bounced it out, created a waveform, and dropped it into Logic, as you see behind me, and so now it's following along with the correct tempo. So that's how I use the workaround without actually putting Reason into Logic to make both of these programs work together for my benefit. Alright guys, tip number 4. Use small bits of variation to create the different changes in the track. When you're doing a track like this that has pretty much the same loop going through the whole track, and you're just building slightly over the same beat or the same sample, you don't want to create too much variation so that the track doesn't seem uniform. Like, this is just a very simple beat. But you want to have little things in the track to announce to the listener that this is a different part. Clearly, if someone's rapping or singing on it, they'll get it, that the chorus is coming or not. But by listening to the beat itself, by adding a different pattern for the hi-hats, adding in those vocal haze, having the bass line play their notes longer than it does in the verse, they can know that, okay, this is a different part of the song just by little pieces of the track changing. And, you add a crash, or just another percussion part, but it's little things to be able to have the listener understand that this is no longer the verse and this is another part of the song, so that they can flow with the emotion that you're creating, or just have a full-on, listener's concept of what's happening right now. And tip number 5, don't be afraid to play around with the notes that you may have had going through the entire song. This is an actual instrument that I've already used, and I was doing a small adjustment to signify that this is another section of the song, but I was actually playing around and I came up with that melody line. It wasn't my original thought. I was just gonna use the mod wheel to make it vibrate a little bit, but I was like, I'm just playing around, and I came up with that, and I liked it. It was different enough. It didn't create too much of a jarring feel in the song, so I'm going to keep it. And, when you're playing around, you never know what you're going to come up with. And there you have it. Another episode of Tips on the Beat with D.Royul is in the books. Now let's go over the 5 things I talked about in this episode so that we can recap what you have learned today. Number 1, use everything as your inspiration. It could be anything. Remember, literally anything can become inspiration, because you can use both sounds that have no musical note to it, though it has a tone, though it makes a noise. You could use water dripping out of a fountain, hammer hitting a nail. Anything can become inspiration for a beat. Number 2, use a sample as a foundation. Build your song off of a loop that you may have cut, and build it as the foundation for your whole track, that it keeps steady through the whole thing, in a steady place for you to build different sections of a song on top of. Number 3, combine programs using bouncing. bouncing out files creates these waveforms, and you bounce them out and put them in the other form, or you could even link them if they have systems that work together. Reason and Logic do. Oftentimes, Pro Tools and Logic and many other systems now, they're able to work with each other. So these are ways that you can combine different programs to make one song, even if certain sounds are not in the others. Number 4, use small variations to give definitive segments between the song. We're using a sample as a foundation, and it's going to have a very similar sound to the whole track, but you do enough of a change between the chorus and verse 1 and verse 2, and the different segments so that people can recognize that this is not the same part of the song as it was before. And as number 5, don't be afraid to play around with the things that you're doing. As I did in the chorus, the second chorus specifically, I had the same bass line, but then I did some extra effects to it. I played with the mod wheel. I played some extra notes in it, because though it is giving a different variation, it's my song, and if you feel like playing around so it's not just a copy and paste kind of song, go ahead, see what you can make that sounds fun. See what you can make that sounds okay to you, because it's all about how you feel when you're making the music. So thank you so much for watching this episode. Make sure you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and go back and see some of the previous episodes. If you're interested in buying any of the beats, hit the email in the description of this video. And remember, everybody, creativity has no boundaries. Use your God-given gifts and talents to create something fresh today, but remember to make sure you're having fun while you're doing it. See you next time.